Pakistan's Pashtoons rise up. Thousands demonstrate against what they say are discriminatory policies and abuses they suffer under the pretext of the war on terrorism. How will the government respond to their demands, and what does it mean for Pakistan's domestic security policy? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Fuli Batibo. In a rare public challenge to Pakistan's armed forces, thousands of protesters from the Pashtun community have demanded an end to what they say are decades of oppression. Police cracked down on the latest demonstration in the northern city of Lahore, arresting several leaders of the Pashtun protection movement. The PTM rose to prominence after the police shooting of a young social media star in Karachi in January. The death of Nakibullah Masood brought thousands onto the streets to urge an end to police impunity. Ethnic Pashtuns say they've borne the brunt of the so-called war on terror in Pakistan, with thousands disappearing over the years or targeted in extrajudicial killings. Military commanders accuse the protest leaders of trying to destabilize Pakistan. Well, we'll get to our panel in just a moment, but first, Kamal Haider has more from Lahore.
Thousands of supporters from the tribal areas of Pakistan have converged in the city of Lahore. They are also supported by the Women Actions Forum, human rights organizations from the city of Lahore as well as across the country, who say that the concerns of these tribals must be addressed within the constitutional ambit and the legitimate demands met by the government. Now, as you can see, the people are carrying black and white flags, the white signifying peace, saying that this is a peaceful movement, and the black, of course, the protest. They're demanding an end to the extrajudicial killings. They want to know about the whereabouts of the missing people who have gone missing in the 17-year-old conflict along that region close to Afghanistan. Also, they want the hanging of a senior police officer who was accused of extrajudicial killings. And they want the removal of the landmines from that area because it is already costing lives. Now, those landmines were laid by fleeing Taliban fighters and the Pakistani military during their operations in the tribal areas. This movement is gaining momentum on the social media. The local media has blacked it out for the most part, and they say that they will continue with their protest until the demands are met.
Well, the Pashtuns are the second largest ethnic group in Pakistan, making up 15% of the population of 207 million. And they are the largest group in neighboring Afghanistan. In all, more than 45 million Pashtuns live in the region on both sides of the border. In Pakistan, they're based mostly in the northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province and the federally administered tribal areas of FATA. That area has the lowest literacy rate in Pakistan. Just over 30% of people can read or write. And FATA suffers from fighting with the Taliban in Afghanistan spilling over the border. Now, as Kamal mentioned, Pashtun protest leaders are making several demands on the Pakistani government, including an end to extrajudicial killings and investigating previous murders. Pashtuns also want to know the fate of missing people, the removal of landmines from the war between the Pakistani army and the Taliban, and they're demanding the execution of a police commander who's under arrest for his role in the killing of the young Pashtun Nakibullah Masood. Well, let's bring in our panel now. From Islamabad, ALJAZEERA, former Pakistani ambassador to Afghanistan. From Kawazakila in the Swat region, via Skype, is Sajjad Khan, a human rights activist and one of the organizers of the Pashtun protection movement. And also in Islamabad, Simbal Khan, a security analyst. Thank you all for joining us on Al Jazeera. Sajjad Khan, if I can start with you, the Pashtun protection movement says the Pakistani military is responsible for the suffering of the Pashtuns. How so? What is the context of this accusation?
So thank you for inviting me for this program. I would like to answer this question that the people are demanding. They are saying that these rights, these organizations, these military organizations were trained back in the 1980s by Pakistani military, and afterwards they were used in different in the neighboring countries for their policies. But after that, when they were against the army and they started bombing the cities, so that's how then the military started operations against them. And in those operations, there were people, they were innocent people who were targeted. There were homes were destroyed, and homes were destroyed. And the problem is that when there was military operations, so they would not give any ultimatum, and like millions of, like around 2 million of people, around 1.7 million people from Swat left the valley within 2 to 3 days. And as you might know, that Mingora is a populated city, and the whole city was vacated in just 2 or 3 days. So that's how. And then after and then there were like 4 or 5 long curfews. And in those curfews, no one was allowed to come out of their homes, and no one was allowed to go out of the city to buy things for their normal use. So that's how the people are saying that military is involved. And the thing is that when there is war, so in war there are different contexts of there. So like there are missing persons, there are torture, abuses,
absolutely,
and there are.
I'll get to ask you a bit more about the type of life people in these areas, in this particular area of Pakistan, live. But I want to bring in Simbal Khan first in Islamabad to get your view, Simbal, on who is responsible for the suffering of the Pashtun people. This is, of course, a very complicated issue, an important one nonetheless. Who is it that is responsible for the destruction of this area of Pakistan? Is it the Pakistani military? Is it the Pakistani government? Or is it the different armed groups that operate in this region?
I think it's a combination of both the lack of action by the Pakistani state. I wouldn't just say the military, it's also the Pakistani state, which was complicit in leaving the Pashtun behind in development. FATA reform never took place. 70 years Pakistan has been independent, and we have retained the FCR system. Pashtun areas, FATA itself was never mainstream for the 70 years. So it was a cumulative effect of the civilian as well as the military leaderships, which has kind of transition in the government in Pakistan. So I don't think it's fair enough just to throw everything on the military's shoulders. But of course, the securitized aspects of FATA region due to the war in Afghanistan, which has raged for the last 40 years, FATA did become that frontline area, and part of Pakistan's own security policies towards Afghanistan have impacted FATA in very, very, difficult ways. But just coming back to a more current view of the situation, I know the military itself is the key actor, the key institution right now involved in the conflict in FATA, or basically the counter-terror operations in FATA, which has resulted now in the suffering of people and basically the displacement of millions of people that have been discussed before. But we must remember that 5-6 years ago, before the operation started, there was a huge push for the military to undertake those operations. There were a lot of people right now, which the kind of, organizations, WAF and others who are supporting the Pashtun PTM protest in Lahore, were also one of those key liberals, left of center people who were pushing the military to undertake these operations. And military operations are always unfortunate whenever they are undertaken in civilian areas, where most of the 4th-generation wars are being fought.
Indeed.
These kind of things happen, and it's really unfortunate, and they should be redressed.
Ambassador ALJAZEERA, what is the government doing to address the concerns of this community?
Well, unfortunately, the government has not come up to the mark. For the last 16 years since 9/11, FATA is literally on fire from every angle, from the militants and then from the military. They were fighting, and between their fight, the whole of FATA got the brunt of the war. Their men were killed, their houses were destroyed, their business totally crumbled. There are 73% of the people in FATA are living a life below the poverty line. So that is the situation. And
is there any government representation, sir? Is there any government representation of any kind to hear some of these concerns and hear some of these demands?
Yes, the government representative is very much there right from day one till today. The governor, who is appointed by the federal government, is very much sitting in Peshawar controlling the federal area, and the army is there controlling the security situation. The civil and military both are there, but obviously the upper hand is that of the military controlling the area. But the government has done literally nothing in the literal sense, and that is why the people are fed up that we have given so much sacrifices that everything of us is gone, and in return the government has done nothing, and on top of that it is not cleaning the landmines, or the behavior on the checkpoint is not tolerable, it's insulting, it's abusing, and then no compensation is made for those who have been killed or the houses or the business that has been destroyed.
But as you know,
living
sir,
high and dry in Fatah.
Sajjad Khan, as you know, some people will say that this is not the only region of Pakistan that's going through some of these challenges. Give us a sense of what life is like for people in the Fatah region, what health is like, what education is like. How is life different for people who live in this region than other parts of Pakistan?
So I would say that we are saying Fatah. It's not only Fatah. Like Swat is not a Fatah region. It's a mainstream region. And there is Dir, there is Bunair, and the whole Malaccan region. So I think we should not just restrain this thing into Fatah. It's both Fatah and other Pashtoon regions.
Okay.
So the thing is that the health situation is like in Fatah, literally there is but up to the mark. And the problem is that if we compare it with Punjab or with other provinces, so like the maternal mortality rates infant mortality rates are higher here. So
Simbal Khan, I'm going to bring in Simbal Khan into the conversation, and so that we can reestablish your Skype connection there, Sajjad Khan, because we're having a few issues understanding what you're saying. Simbal, the issue of missing persons and extrajudicial killings is not restricted to Fatah. There are other parts of Pakistan that are also affected, aren't they? Is the Pakistani government particularly discriminatory against Pashtun in Fatah? You know, how would you characterize what's happening in this region?
I think the whole issue about the missing persons is more related to the conflict zones. It's more aggravated. I know since, Pakistan passed, since after 2014, when we've had the APS attacks, and by that time when we passed the National Action Plan, which was to extend security in Pakistan and fight terrorism. Under that, a lot of extra powers were given to the military to undertake those operations. We brought in military court system. So some of the civilian, legal covers that normally are available to the Pakistani citizens, even those have become weakened. But the issue of missing persons is a very chronic issue. The more, prominently it used to be talked in reference to the Baloch missing people, because, Balochistan has had this low-lying kind of, sometimes it heats up, sometimes a low-lying chronic insurgency, chronic nationalist groups which were fighting the Pakistani state. Right. And there is a whole security issue, and Pakistani military is, of course, the key security actor providing security within that region. And also because of CPEC now, there's a lot of focus there also. Yeah. So that issue was always related to. So for me, missing persons, extrajudicial killings are an aspect of conflict zones where the militaries become the key security actor or provider of security, and they're taking active operations. You know how militaries operate anywhere, and it's not just indigenous just to the case of Pakistan. You look at Afghanistan, what has happened last 25, 30, 40 years. There are huge human rights violations that happen when militaries go into civilian areas to extend security. Right. So I think that, but I think another thing that is very important to mention here, Pakistani military has really improved its counterterrorism fighting abilities last 10 years, 10, 15 years. There's been a marked improvement. It's noted internationally on that. But I think what needs to be looked into, that if they are going to continue to be the key security provider in conflict areas, they have to improve their counterinsurgency strategies or counter-insurgency measures and trainings, which kind of focus more on, which are more people-centric, where you do go in as a security provider.
Let me bring back Ambassador Wazir to the conversation. We'll talk more about the solutions in a little while, but I want to get the Ambassador's thoughts on the fact that over the years, the Pashtuns have been branded as Islamists, have been branded as militants because of the fact that the Taliban are also Pashtun-dominated, a Pashtun-dominated outfit. How detrimental has this been for their cause?
Well, this is very unfortunate. It's not only what you said happening in the country, but in the textbook in Punjab, which I hope they have removed by now, the Pashtuns were bracketed as traitor and illiterates. It's everywhere, not only in the media, but I'm quoting a textbook of the Punjab education system. And then dramas were made by the security agencies where the Pashtuns were displayed in a different way. I'll not go into the detail, everybody knows about it. So this has really angered the people, that the fountains of militancy, or the brain and finances of the militancy, if that is happening from here, are sitting in Punjab, and the foot soldiers are in the tribal area. The foot soldiers are hit, but the fountain we generate, which is known to everybody, that is not being touched. That is another issue. And the third one is, when the people of FATA were displaced, they were to seek shelter in the settled area of Pakistan. In Punjab they were not allowed. In Sindh they were not allowed. A circular was issued not to allow these people to cross into our area. So this is the behavior, unfortunately, which has laid the foundation of the anger, and then the government failure to do anything to address the issue has given a voice, and now the people are up in hand and demanding, which again I'll bring one thing more into the subject. During their sit-in in Islamabad in February, the government agreed with the PTM to address these 5 demands within 1 month. The government didn't address, and then they came out to demand these 5 demands of them to be addressed, which is absolutely genuine, which is within the Constitution, which is absolutely legal. Nothing is wrong about it. Instead of addressing those concerns, the government is now taking punitive action, which is very, very unfortunate.
Simbal Khan, do you think this protest movement will lead to real change for the Pashtuns?
I think it should, because it is sensitizing. It is sensitizing. And for me, it was a long time in coming. Last 6 or 7 years, people who have been working in FATA, I work with the UN agencies and others. I mean, what was coming out was that there's nothing been done. People have been removed from their homes. There have been internal displacement. The displaced people, now that they're ready to go back, there is absolutely nothing there. Homes and properties and lives have been destroyed. And the state has, and the government has moved far more slowly. So much so, I think one of the key things that for people like us who have been working on it, even the military itself was trying to sensitize the civilian government and pointing out that things are really dire, and there has to be a far more greater kind of momentum to the reform, to FATA reform, to the mainstreaming, FATA mainstreaming. A lot of push that you've seen last 2-3 years has also been coming from the military, because they were realizing it's way beyond their control. Right?
Sajjad is back with us from Swat Valley. Sajjad, how do you respond to the accusations that your movement is supported by Afghanistan?
I think it has been cleared by Manzoor Pashtun himself too, and the other leaders too, that there is absolutely no support from Afghanistan. But the thing is that if they have protested in response to this, it's just a basic human rights approach, like a human, like in a solidarity with the human rights movement. So like we do protest for Burma, we do protest for Palestine, right? So that's how they have just a solidarity protest for Pashtun Tahfuz movement. And the thing is that like it's a genuine grassroots movement which is supported by people from PATA and other places where Pashtuns live. Right. So I think it would be there is absolutely no evidence of support from Afghanistan.
Do you agree with that, Simbal?
Accusation.
Is it a genuine grassroots movement? Is it a social movement, or is it a political movement, given the current context in Pakistan?
I think right now it's a social movement, but it can tomorrow turn into a political movement. It's very early as far as movements go. It's only about 4 months old in real actual sense. And it was really started out again because of this case of one Pashtun from Karachi, Nagibullah, and his extrajudicial killing. So right now we've just seen a social momentum around it. It's a social movement. And Pakistan, as I said earlier today, Pakistan is going through that phase where there's going to be more and more social movements which are outside the main political party structures that we see. I think right now it's a social movement, but let's see, maybe it evolves into a proper political platform, political movement, which gives voice to the Pashtuns, the younger Pashtuns who feel that the mainstream political parties, Pashtun political parties like ANP, like JUIF, or even PTI to a certain extent, is not really kind of standing up for the cause of especially the difficulties that the Pashtuns have recently seen. So yes, it can evolve. I think it's evolving and we are watching it. It can evolve into a more of a political movement.
Ambassador Wazir, how do you see this movement evolving, and what sort of social and political reforms do you think the Pakistani government should enact to improve the lives of the people in the FATA region and to improve the lives of Pashtuns?
Well, I think let's look at the movement. It started in 2014. Manzoor Pashtun was working for the protection of the Masood tribe's right within that area. He worked for 2 years. Nobody paid attention. But then Naqibullah Masood's killing came up, and that proved really, that jacked the movement. And now we see it went up to the Pashtun Tahfuz movement or Pashtun protection movement. Well, what the government can do is to address, I think, that the government should stay away from using force. It should resort to political solution of the problem. It should find there are capable people in the tribal area. The problem here is, let me mention another thing. In the last 70 years, no one from FATA is included in the policy making for FATA. Now I think enough is said and demonstrated by the youngsters from FATA. Now they should be included in the policy decision, or people from FATA who are well-versed, well-educated, well-experienced should be involved in resolving this issue politically for the government.
Okay.
Like what the government wants to do, they should do it through the tribal people, not without the tribal people. If they do it otherwise like they've been doing for the last 70 years, that would be disastrous.
Okay.
It is enough. People from FATA must be involved.
Let's give the last word to Sajjad Khan. Sajjad, the United States and NATO have also been heavily involved in the Afghan conflict, which has had an impact on the Pashtuns in Pakistan. So what would be your demand from the US and other Western governments regarding your plight? Because the responsibility doesn't just lie with the Pakistani government, does it?
So the thing is that right now, if we are, as the ambassador has also said, that right now there are these 4 or 5 there are these 5 demands which are related to the government of Pakistan and Pakistan military. So I think we should just wait and see for the movement to evolve into. So that's how, like, if we involve United States and NATO in there too, then this is not going to be solved, or this is not going to be addressed that way. I think right now this is a movement under the Constitution of Pakistan from the government, like the demands are related to the government of Pakistan, and this is the whole war, international war on terror, then comes in that. So I think for right now we should not, we would not be able to. We would not want to involve that. So I think it's for the central leaders of the PTM or the Pashtun Protection Movement to address these things later on. For the time being, I think we are only focusing on the demands that are forwarded by PTM and their different political gatherings.
And it will be interesting to see whether the Pakistani government responds to these demands. Thank you very much, Ayaz Wazir, Sajjad Khan and Simbal Khan for joining us on Inside Story. And thank you as well for watching. You can always watch this program again anytime by visiting our website at ALJAZEERA.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter, of course. Our handle is at AJ Inside Story. From me, Fully Batibo, and the whole Inside Story team, thank you for watching. Bye for now.